This is not an ordinary moment. This is a prophetic intersection in time. February 1617 is not just another date on the calendar. It is a divine appointment encoded with acceleration, alignment, and supernatural recalibration. There are movements happening in the unseen realm. Pieces are shifting. Doors are adjusting on their hinges. Conversations are being orchestrated that you have not heard, and opportunities are being prepared that you have not yet seen. Heaven is synchronizing details that once looked disconnected. What felt delayed was not denial, it was divine alignment. Something is aligning for your breakthrough. What looked scattered is coming into structure. What felt resisted is now being released. The pressure you experienced was not meant to crush you, it was configuring you for capacity. There is a sound of convergence in the spirit, resources aligning, relationships aligning, strategies aligning, favor aligning. The very things that seemed out of order are being rearranged with precision. These 2 days mark a spiritual pivot. Expect acceleration. Expect clarity. Expect divine orchestration. Because when alignment happens, breakthrough is no longer a possibility, it becomes inevitable. There is a divine order that governs breakthrough, and that order begins with alignment. Before anything manifests in the natural realm, it must first come into agreement in the spiritual realm. Alignment is the invisible architecture that supports visible transformation. Many people pray for sudden change, but heaven responds with strategic positioning. What looks like waiting is often recalibration. What feels like delay is frequently divine adjustment. When alignment begins, it does not always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it whispers through subtle shifts, unexpected conversations, redirected plans, closed doors that protect you from misalignment. Alignment means your thoughts, words, emotions, and actions are coming into agreement with what has already been spoken over your life. When there is internal conflict, breakthrough becomes obstructed. But when your mindset synchronizes with divine intention, movement accelerates. You cannot carry an outdated belief system into a new dimension of promise. Alignment requires the courage to release what no longer fits your next level. It requires the humility to admit that not every closed door was an attack, some were divine edits. There are moments when heaven pauses progression, not to punish you, but to reposition you. A slight shift in perspective can unlock years of stagnation. A minor adjustment in association can open a major door of opportunity. Alignment is often uncomfortable because it disrupts familiarity. It stretches you beyond preference. It calls you out of cycles that once felt safe. Yet without that divine disruption, destiny remains dormant. When alignment takes place, confusion begins to clear. Patterns that once repeated themselves begin to break. You start recognizing what drains you and what builds you. Discernment sharpens. Your energy becomes intentional. You stop striving and start flowing. There is a difference between forcing outcomes and moving in alignment. Force produces exhaustion. Alignment produces momentum. When you are aligned, grace carries what effort alone could never sustain. Breakthrough does not begin with external evidence. It begins with internal agreement. The moment your spirit settles into certainty, circumstances begin to rearrange. The world responds to conviction. Doubt fractures alignment, but belief stabilizes it. This is why mental realignment is critical before manifestation. If your internal narrative contradicts your promise, you create resistance. Alignment demands that you rewrite internal scripts that were authored by fear, disappointment, or trauma. There is also relational alignment. Not everyone assigned to your past is equipped for your future. When heaven aligns you, some connections will naturally loosen. This is not loss, it is refinement. Every elevation requires separation from something. Alignment brings you into proximity with people who reinforce purpose, not people who rehearse limitation. The right conversations at the right time can shift the trajectory of your entire life. Financial alignment, emotional alignment, spiritual alignment. All of it converges before breakthrough becomes visible. You may not see the machinery moving, but the systems are adjusting. Think of alignment as the calibration of an instrument. If it is even slightly off, the sound becomes distorted. But when properly tuned, harmony emerges. Your life is being tuned. Situations are being calibrated. Timing is being perfected. Sometimes alignment feels like isolation. It feels like quiet seasons where nothing seems to be happening. But silence does not mean stagnation. It often means construction. Foundations are being reinforced beneath the surface. Roots are deepening where no one applauds. Alignment is not glamorous. It is meticulous. It is intentional. It is precise. There are divine intersections where preparation meets opportunity. If preparation is absent, opportunity becomes overwhelming. But when alignment has occurred, you are not intimidated by what arrives. You are ready for it. The reason some breakthroughs collapse under pressure is because alignment was skipped. But when your character, mindset, and strategy are synchronized, you can sustain what you receive. Alignment also requires surrender. Control must yield to trust. You cannot orchestrate what only heaven can synchronize. Your responsibility is obedience. Your assignment is focus. As you take disciplined steps, unseen forces are adjusting circumstances beyond your reach. That is alignment at work. Watch for subtle confirmations. Watch for repeating themes. Watch for doors that open without strain. These are indicators that alignment is progressing. When alignment is complete, breakthrough will not need to be chased. It will arrive with clarity. Effort will feel different. Progress will feel natural. Peace will accompany promotion. You are not being denied. You are being aligned. Every lesson, every pause, every redirection has been part of a larger design. The frustration was shaping endurance. The silence was sharpening discernment. The stretching was expanding capacity. Alignment is not accidental. It is intentional preparation for inevitability. Timing is not accidental. It is intentional, calculated, and governed by divine intelligence. There is a difference between chronological time and prophetic timing. Chronological time measures seconds, minutes, and days, but prophetic timing measures readiness, alignment, and spiritual maturity. You can be in the right year, but the wrong mindset. You can stand at the correct door, yet lack the discernment to recognize it. Prophetic timing activates when preparation intersects with divine orchestration. Many people become frustrated because they measure their lives by comparison. They look at someone else's acceleration and assume delay in their own journey. But prophetic timing is customized. What unfolds for one person in a year may require another person a decade, not because of favoritism, but because of formation. Timing is shaped by what you must carry. The weight of your assignment determines the depth of your preparation. Heavy mantles require strong foundations. There are moments when heaven intentionally withholds visibility. Not because you are forgotten, but because exposure without readiness creates collapse. Prophetic timing protects you from premature promotion. It shields you from opportunities that would exceed your current capacity. What feels like stagnation is often strategic concealment. Seeds do not break through the soil the day they are planted. They grow in hidden places before emerging into visibility. When prophetic timing activates, events that once seemed unrelated begin to converge. Conversations align. Opportunities appear with unusual precision. Delayed responses suddenly accelerate. The atmosphere shifts from resistance to receptivity. What once required force now flows with grace. Timing has a sound to it. It carries clarity. You sense when it is time to move, time to speak, time to release, time to initiate. Discernment becomes sharper. Impatience disrupts timing. When you push beyond your appointed season, you create unnecessary friction. Acting too soon can sabotage what would have unfolded effortlessly. There are doors that only open from the inside, and forcing them from the outside damages the hinges. Prophetic timing requires trust. It requires restraint. It requires the humility to wait without losing confidence. There is also a maturation process connected to timing. You may possess talent early, but character must catch up to calling. Skill can open a door, but integrity sustains the room. Timing ensures that your internal world is strong enough to manage your external expansion. Without maturity, elevation becomes a burden instead of a blessing. Sometimes timing feels inconvenient. Opportunities may arise when you least expect them. You may be called to move when you feel comfortable where you are. Prophetic timing rarely aligns with comfort zones. It aligns with purpose. When the moment arrives, hesitation can cost momentum. Discernment helps you recognize divine windows. These windows do not remain open indefinitely. They are opportunities embedded within specific seasons. There are cycles in life, periods of learning, periods of labor, periods of launching. Confusion happens when you misinterpret your cycle. You may be in a learning season while trying to launch. You may be in a building season while expecting applause. Prophetic timing clarifies your cycle. It reminds you that hidden seasons are not wasted seasons. They are developmental stages preparing you for visibility. Divine timing also recalibrates relationships. Certain connections are seasonal, while others are strategic for destiny. When timing shifts, associations shift. You may find yourself drawn toward new conversations and distant from familiar patterns. This is not instability, it is synchronization. Your environment must align with your emerging season. Pressure often intensifies before timing manifests. There can be a sense of urgency in the atmosphere. Delays may compress into sudden acceleration. What took years to build may shift in days. This compression is not chaotic, it is orchestrated. When timing is fulfilled, momentum increases rapidly. The very obstacles that once resisted you begin to cooperate with your advancement. Prophetic timing is also about obedience to subtle instruction. Sometimes it is a nudge to send a message, to attend a meeting, to revisit an idea you abandoned. Small acts of obedience position you within larger movements. Missing a prompting can delay progress, while responding promptly can unlock sequences you could not manufacture on your own. Comparison blinds you to timing. When you rush because someone else appears ahead, you risk stepping outside your appointed moment. Every journey has a rhythm. Some unfold steadily, others erupt suddenly. Trusting your rhythm keeps you steady when external noise tries to pressure you. There are divine appointments that cannot be rescheduled. They are intersections of preparation, favor, and opportunity. When you arrive at these intersections, clarity replaces confusion. You recognize that every lesson, every setback, every closed door was aligning you with this moment. Timing gathers fragments of your past and assembles them into a cohesive breakthrough pattern. You may not always perceive the countdown, but heaven does not miscalculate. Nothing about your journey has been random. The pauses were strategic. The detours were protective. The acceleration now unfolding is connected to unseen coordination that began long before you recognized it. Timing is not about luck. It is about alignment with a higher schedule that moves with precision and intention. Resistance is often misinterpreted as rejection, but in many cases it is an announcement. It signals that something valuable is on the other side. The intensity of opposition frequently mirrors the magnitude of the breakthrough approaching. When there is nothing significant ahead, there is rarely significant resistance. Friction is proof of movement. Pressure is evidence of progress. The very tension you feel can be confirmation that you are nearing a threshold. There is a pattern to break through. Before expansion, there is constriction. Before elevation, there is testing. Before release, there is resistance. It is in these moments that doubt becomes loud and fatigue attempts to settle in. You may question your decisions. You may reconsider your path. Yet resistance is not a command to retreat. It is an invitation to persist with discernment. If you withdraw every time pressure increases, you will repeatedly abandon rooms that were about to open. Resistance refines perception. It forces you to evaluate motives, strengthen strategy, and clarify vision. When everything flows easily, growth can become shallow. But when obstacles emerge, resilience deepens. You begin to identify weaknesses that would have sabotaged you later. Opposition exposes cracks in preparation so they can be repaired before expansion arrives. What feels like delay is often reinforcement. There is also internal resistance. Sometimes the battle is not external circumstances, but internal hesitation. Fear of success can be as paralyzing as fear of failure. When you approach a new level, unfamiliarity can trigger discomfort. Your mind may attempt to pull you back toward what feels predictable. Internal resistance often disguises itself as practicality. It whispers caution when boldness is required. Recognizing this pattern is essential. Not every warning is wisdom. Some warnings are insecurity attempting to preserve comfort. External resistance can appear through criticism, unexpected setbacks, financial pressure, or relational strain. These forces attempt to distract and exhaust you before you cross into new territory. But resistance loses power when you interpret it correctly. Instead of viewing obstacles as proof you are off course, you can see them as confirmation that your direction carries weight. Breakthrough territory is rarely unguarded. Growth challenges systems that benefited from your limitation. There is a psychological shift that occurs when you understand resistance as temporary. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. Instead of personalizing opposition, you analyze it. What lesson is being highlighted? What adjustment is required? Sometimes resistance demands refinement, not retreat. Other times it demands patience rather than force. Discernment distinguishes between an obstacle meant to redirect you and one meant to strengthen you. Resistance also exposes commitment. When momentum slows, motivation is tested. Are you driven by convenience or conviction? Convenience collapses under pressure. Conviction persists. The moments when quitting feels logical are often the moments closest to release. Fatigue intensifies right before momentum shifts. This is why endurance is critical. Endurance does not mean blind stubbornness. It means focused persistence aligned with purpose. There is a compressing effect that resistance creates. It can feel like walls are closing in. Options appear limited. Resources feel stretched. But compression can build power. Just as pressure builds beneath the surface before eruption, your current tension may be generating force. When release finally occurs, it carries acceleration. What was restrained begins to surge forward. Resistance is also a filter. It separates casual interest from committed pursuit. Many people are excited about outcomes, but unprepared for the process. Obstacles clarify who is willing to grow and who prefers comfort. Breakthrough requires capacity, and resistance builds that capacity. The skills you sharpen under pressure become tools you rely on in expansion. Sometimes resistance intensifies because alignment is nearly complete. The closer you get to resolution, the more distractions attempt to pull your focus. Old habits may resurface. Past relationships may reappear. Opportunities that once tempted you may return. These are not coincidences, they are tests of clarity. Will you revert to familiarity, or will you advance into promise? Emotional resilience becomes vital in seasons of resistance. Guarding your thoughts prevents negativity from shaping your expectations. Words spoken in frustration can reinforce limitation. Maintaining disciplined language sustains internal stability. When your internal world remains steady, external turbulence loses influence. Resistance can also uncover hidden alliances. In challenging moments, true support reveals itself. Unexpected encouragement may arise. Strategic partnerships may form. Pressure has a way of exposing both loyalty and weakness within your circle. This clarity is necessary for sustainable breakthrough. The key is not to glorify struggle, but to understand its function. Resistance is not permanent. It is transitional. It signals that change is underway. When interpreted correctly, it strengthens rather than discourages. Each obstacle navigated builds confidence. Each delay endured sharpens patience. Each setback analyzed enhances wisdom. There is a turning point in every season of resistance where persistence meets release. You may not see it yet, but shifts are occurring beneath the surface. What once blocked you is weakening. What once intimidated you is losing authority. The very resistance that attempted to halt you is becoming the evidence that your breakthrough carries significance. Acceleration is not random. It is the result of strategic positioning. When movement suddenly increases, it is because preparation quietly aligned you with opportunity. Many people pray for speed, but speed without structure creates instability. Acceleration must be supported by clarity, discipline, and discernment. Before momentum multiplies, positioning must be precise. Strategic positioning begins with awareness. You cannot align yourself with what you refuse to see. It requires honest evaluation of where you are, what you carry, and what must shift. Sometimes positioning means stepping forward. Other times it means stepping back to gain perspective. It may require leaving environments that restrict growth or embracing responsibilities that stretch capacity. Positioning is intentional, never accidental. There are moments when proximity determines progress. Being in the right room can alter your trajectory. Conversations unlock insight. Exposure expands thinking. Strategic positioning places you within reach of what you have been preparing for. Isolation can protect in one season, but connection accelerates in another. Knowing when to withdraw and when to engage is critical. Discernment guides your placement. Acceleration also demands internal order. Disorganized thinking produces scattered results. When clarity sharpens, energy becomes focused. Instead of dispersing effort across distractions, you concentrate on high-impact actions. Strategic positioning eliminates unnecessary noise. It filters commitments. It refines priorities. What once felt urgent may no longer be essential. Focus intensifies. There is a discipline to positioning. Daily habits shape future speed. Small, consistent actions compound into significant outcomes. Many desire sudden elevation without steady preparation. But acceleration rests on foundations built over time. Skills developed in obscurity become assets in visibility. Character refined in private sustains influence in public. Strategic positioning values process as much as outcome. Sometimes positioning requires courage to pivot. What worked in a previous season may not sustain the next. Familiar strategies can become limitations if clung to beyond their relevance. Recognizing when to adapt protects momentum. Flexibility is not instability. It is responsiveness to evolving direction. Strategic thinkers anticipate shifts rather than react to them. There is also emotional positioning. Unresolved disappointment can anchor you to past setbacks. Bitterness clouds judgment. Fear narrows perspective. Emotional clarity creates space for acceleration. Releasing resentment frees energy. Forgiveness lightens mental weight. When internal baggage is cleared, movement becomes smoother. Strategic positioning involves stewardship of resources. Time, finances, relationships, and ideas must be managed intentionally. Waste delays acceleration. Careless decisions create detours. But disciplined stewardship multiplies opportunity. Even limited resources can produce significant results when aligned with clear strategy. It is not always about having more. It is about managing well what you have. Environmental positioning matters. Your surroundings influence expectation. If you remain in spaces that reinforce limitation, growth becomes difficult. Exposure to expanded thinking stretches possibility. Conversations with visionaries ignite creativity. Strategic environments challenge complacency. They demand excellence. They inspire innovation. Acceleration can feel overwhelming if you are unprepared. Sudden opportunities require immediate decisions. Without clarity, hesitation can cost advancement. Strategic positioning ensures readiness. When doors open, you recognize them. When invitations arise, you respond confidently. Preparation reduces panic. It replaces anxiety with assurance. There is also spiritual positioning. Alignment with purpose sharpens direction. When motives are pure and intentions focused, momentum carries weight. Distraction loses influence. Competing desires no longer divide energy. Strategic positioning centers you within your assignment. It reminds you that not every opportunity is your responsibility. Selectivity preserves strength. Risk assessment is part of positioning. Not every leap is wise. Calculated movement considers timing and capacity. Strategic thinkers evaluate potential outcomes before acting. They weigh consequences without allowing fear to paralyze. Balanced judgment sustains progress. Sometimes positioning requires stillness. Waiting can be strategic, observing patterns, gathering information, and strengthening skills during quiet seasons prepares you for rapid movement later. Stillness is not stagnation when it is intentional. It is preparation for precision. Acceleration often follows obedience to subtle instruction. A simple adjustment can unlock significant advancement. Sending a message, applying for a role, revisiting a neglected idea, small acts align you with larger shifts. Momentum rarely begins with dramatic gestures. It begins with disciplined steps. Strategic positioning protects sustainability. Quick rises without grounding can lead to quick falls. But when acceleration is supported by structure, growth stabilizes. Foundations matter. Integrity matters. Clarity matters. As momentum increases, your preparation determines durability. You may sense that speed is approaching. Opportunities may begin appearing closer together. Decisions may need to be made faster. This is not chaos, it is coordinated movement. Because you positioned yourself intentionally, acceleration does not intimidate you. It confirms readiness. Every adjustment, every disciplined habit, every refined priority has been aligning you for this increase in pace. There are movements taking place that you cannot see, conversations unfolding that you have not heard, and decisions being made in rooms you have never entered. What appears still on the surface is often active beneath it. Orchestration rarely announces itself with spectacle. It works through subtle coordination. Pieces shift quietly. Timing adjusts precisely. What once seemed disconnected begins to form a pattern when viewed from a higher perspective. You may have questioned why certain plans stalled or why specific doors closed without explanation. What felt abrupt or confusing was not necessarily opposition. It may have been protection. Redirection can be orchestration in disguise. A delayed response may have prevented premature exposure. A canceled opportunity may have shielded you from misalignment. There are variables beyond your awareness that factor into your journey. Behind the scenes, alignment is occurring at levels you cannot calculate. People you have never met may be discussing ideas that will eventually intersect with your path. Systems are adjusting. Resources are reallocating. Opportunities are being prepared in environments you have not yet accessed. What feels stagnant in your immediate view may be strategic preparation elsewhere. Orchestration is detailed. It accounts for timing, readiness, relationships, and capacity. It coordinates elements that appear unrelated. A conversation from months ago may connect to an opportunity weeks from now. A skill developed years earlier may suddenly become relevant. Nothing cultivated with intention is wasted. What you learned in one season often becomes the key to unlock another. Trust becomes essential when you cannot see the full picture. Doubt tends to magnify what is visible while ignoring what is developing invisibly. When you focus only on immediate evidence, you risk misinterpreting silence as absence. Yet silence can indicate activity occurring beyond your line of sight. Just because you cannot trace movement does not mean movement has ceased. There are strategic delays designed to synchronize variables. If one element moves too quickly while another remains unprepared, imbalance occurs. Orchestration ensures convergence. It aligns the right people, the right timing, and the right capacity simultaneously. Rushed outcomes often lack sustainability because essential components were missing. Coordinated outcomes carry stability. Behind the scenes, orchestration also reshapes character. While external arrangements are forming, internal refinement continues. Patience strengthens. Discernment sharpens. Motives clarify. These internal adjustments prepare you to manage what is being arranged externally. Without internal development, external opportunity can overwhelm. You may notice subtle confirmations. Repeated themes emerge in conversations. Ideas resurface unexpectedly. Doors that were once resistant begin to loosen. These are signals that coordination is advancing. Orchestration often reveals itself gradually. You begin to recognize that certain setbacks redirected you toward better alignments. There is complexity in orchestration that exceeds human calculation. You might plan one route, only to encounter a detour that seems inconvenient. Yet that detour introduces you to a connection you would not have met otherwise. What you labeled as interruption becomes introduction. What you saw as limitation becomes leverage. Impatience can disrupt perception. When urgency intensifies, it becomes tempting to force outcomes. But forcing bypasses coordination. It creates strain rather than flow. When orchestration is active, movement unfolds with a sense of order. Even challenges carry purpose. Even delays serve refinement. Sometimes separation is part of orchestration. Relationships shift, roles change. Environments evolve. What once felt stable may feel transitional. This is not instability, it is recalibration. Certain alignments must dissolve so stronger alignments can form. Release creates space. Behind the scenes, influence may be increasing without your awareness. Your name may enter conversations in your absence. Your work may be observed quietly. Recommendations may circulate where you have no visibility. Not every advancement requires your direct effort. Some progress results from coordinated favor beyond your immediate reach. Orchestration also aligns lessons with opportunity. If a skill is missing, a situation arises to develop it. If confidence needs strengthening, circumstances present challenges that stretch you. Growth and opportunity intertwine. You are being shaped for what is being shaped for you. There are intersections ahead where preparation meets arrangement. When they converge, clarity emerges. What once seemed fragmented will appear intentional. The confusion of past seasons will make sense in light of present alignment. Pieces that felt random will reveal pattern. The key is maintaining steadiness while unseen coordination unfolds. Guard your thoughts against premature conclusions. Remain consistent in discipline. Continue refining skills. Stay attentive to subtle guidance. Orchestration does not require constant visibility to be effective. Momentum may shift suddenly. What felt slow can accelerate without warning. Doors that seemed permanently closed can open quickly. Opportunities may appear in clusters. This sudden movement is not coincidence. It is the unveiling of what has been arranged quietly over time. You are not navigating isolated events. You are moving within a larger design. Every adjustment, every redirection, every pause has contributed to a coordinated outcome. While you focused on immediate challenges, broader arrangements were forming. What you could not see was still working in your favor. Cycles have a way of disguising themselves as destiny. When something repeats long enough, it can start to feel permanent. Patterns of delay, frustration, near success, and sudden setback can convince you that stagnation is your portion. But cycles are not identities. They are systems sustained by beliefs, behaviors, environments, and unresolved experiences. What has repeated can be interrupted. What has lingered can be dismantled. Delay often begins subtly. A postponed decision, a missed opportunity, a hesitation fueled by doubt. Over time, hesitation becomes habit. Habit becomes pattern. Pattern becomes cycle. Breaking cycles requires awareness. You must first recognize what keeps repeating. Is it procrastination when progress demands discipline? Is it fear when opportunity requires boldness? Is it attachment to familiarity when growth requires change? Stagnation thrives in comfort zones. Predictability can feel safe even when it is unproductive. You may complain about lack of movement while subconsciously preserving routines that prevent expansion. Breaking cycles demands disruption. It calls for intentional shifts in thought and action. Doing the same thing repeatedly while expecting different results sustains delay. There are mental cycles that must be confronted. Limiting beliefs passed down through experience or environment can shape expectation. If you believe advancement is rare, you unconsciously resist possibility. If you expect disappointment, you interpret neutral situations as negative. Mental stagnation precedes circumstantial stagnation. Renewing thought patterns creates space for new outcomes. Emotional cycles also reinforce delay. Unresolved disappointment can create guardedness. Guardedness limits vulnerability. Limited vulnerability restricts opportunity. When past failure dictates present hesitation, you relive the same scenario in different forms. Healing interrupts repetition. Clarity replaces projection. You begin responding to current reality rather than reacting to past wounds. Environmental cycles contribute to stagnation. Surroundings influence perspective. If you remain in spaces where ambition is discouraged or mediocrity is normalized, progress slows. Familiar voices can reinforce old narratives. Breaking cycles sometimes requires shifting proximity. New environments challenge old assumptions. Exposure expands expectation. Behavioral discipline is essential. Cycles are sustained through repeated action. To break them, you must replace old behaviors with intentional ones. Consistency transforms trajectory. Small changes compound, waking earlier to plan, allocating time to skill development, limiting distractions. These shifts appear minor but accumulate into momentum. There is also a spiritual component to cycles. Patterns can form when purpose is postponed. Ignoring internal promptings can create stagnation. When you resist necessary growth, delay becomes extended. Alignment breaks stagnation. Obedience accelerates movement. Acting on clarity dismantles inertia. Cycles of delay often intensify right before disruption. Resistance may increase. Fatigue may surface. Doubt may attempt to resurface with familiar arguments. This is the tension of transition. When patterns begin losing control, they react. Recognizing this prevents retreat. Instead of interpreting intensified resistance as failure, you understand it as a sign that repetition is weakening. Accountability accelerates change. Isolation can preserve cycles because no one challenges your patterns. Honest feedback exposes blind spots. Constructive confrontation strengthens awareness. Growth requires humility. Defensiveness protects stagnation. Openness invites transformation. Breaking cycles also requires patience. You cannot undo years of repetition in a single moment. But decisive commitment initiates interruption. Each consistent action reinforces new direction. Momentum gradually replaces inertia. What once felt automatic becomes intentional. There may be relational cycles that need addressing. Repeated dynamics in friendships or partnerships often reflect unresolved internal themes. If similar conflicts appear in different relationships, examine the pattern. Growth alters attraction. Healing changes tolerance. As you evolve, relational cycles shift. Financial stagnation can also follow repetitive decisions. Spending without strategy. Avoiding investment in development. Delaying necessary risks. Breaking financial cycles demands education, discipline, and long-term perspective. Short-term comfort must yield to long-term vision. Identity plays a crucial role. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you unconsciously align with struggle. If you identify as someone capable of growth, behavior adjusts accordingly. Identity informs action. Action sustains or disrupts cycles. There is a moment when clarity crystallizes. You recognize that repetition is no longer acceptable. Frustration transforms into resolve. Decision becomes firm. This internal shift is powerful. It signals readiness for change. When conviction strengthens, excuses weaken. Momentum may feel slow at first. Old habits attempt to resurface. Familiar comforts call for return. But persistence reinforces transformation. Each time you choose differently, you weaken the cycle. Each disciplined action strengthens new direction. Stagnation loses authority when confronted with intention. Delay dissolves when clarity governs decisions. You are not confined to repetition. Patterns can be rewritten. Systems can be dismantled. What once seemed permanent can shift when awareness, discipline, and alignment converge. Elevation without capacity creates collapse. Expansion without preparation creates overwhelm. Before increase becomes visible, capacity must be strengthened internally. Many desire the next level, but few recognize the weight that accompanies it. Greater influence requires deeper stability. Larger opportunities demand stronger discipline. Capacity expansion is not glamorous, it is rigorous, stretching, and often uncomfortable. Growth begins internally. Your mindset must widen before your environment does. If your thinking remains confined to past limitations, new opportunities will feel intimidating rather than empowering. Expanding capacity means stretching perception. It requires you to see yourself handling responsibilities you once considered beyond reach. Visualization strengthens confidence. Expectation shapes readiness. Emotional capacity is equally critical. As elevation approaches, pressure intensifies, visibility increases scrutiny. Responsibility amplifies accountability. If emotional resilience is weak, stress will dictate decisions. Expanding capacity involves strengthening patience, self-control, and clarity under pressure. It means responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Skill development plays a central role. You cannot sustain what you are not equipped to manage. If your next level requires communication, refine articulation. If it requires leadership, cultivate decisiveness. If it demands innovation, sharpen creativity. Capacity expansion is practical. It translates vision into actionable competence. There is also relational capacity. As influence grows, interactions diversify. You engage with different personalities, perspectives, and expectations. Narrow tolerance limits expansion. Developing empathy and adaptability strengthens connection. Healthy boundaries become essential. Not every demand deserves access. Expanding capacity includes learning when to say no. Time management reflects capacity. Increased responsibility compresses schedules. Without structure, opportunity becomes chaotic. Organizing priorities preserves energy. Strategic planning prevents overwhelm. Capacity grows when discipline governs routine. Financial capacity cannot be ignored. Expansion often requires investment. Without stewardship, increase can become instability. Learning to manage resources wisely strengthens sustainability. Saving, investing, and allocating with intention prepares you for multiplication. Character refinement is foundational. Integrity must deepen as influence broadens. Small compromises at lower levels become significant fractures at higher ones. Capacity expansion demands honesty, consistency, and accountability. Reputation stabilizes elevation. Without character, growth remains fragile. Sometimes expansion feels like pressure rather than promotion. You may feel stretched beyond comfort. Expectations increase. Challenges intensify. This stretching is strengthening. Muscles grow under resistance. Endurance builds through repetition. Capacity increases when you persist through discomfort rather than retreat. There are seasons when you feel hidden while being developed. Visibility may decrease while preparation intensifies. This is not regression. It is reinforcement. Foundations are being fortified. Weak areas are being exposed for strengthening. When elevation arrives, it will rest on reinforced structure. Mental endurance becomes vital. Doubt attempts to surface when challenges expand. Negative self-talk can undermine preparation. Guarding your thoughts preserves stability. Confidence is not arrogance. It is assurance built on preparation. Capacity grows when belief aligns with disciplined effort. Adaptability strengthens expansion. Environments shift quickly at higher levels. Trends evolve. Expectations change. Rigidity limits growth. Flexibility preserves relevance. Learning continuously prevents stagnation. Capacity expansion involves remaining teachable. There is also spiritual depth connected to elevation. Alignment with purpose sustains perspective. Without clarity of assignment, expansion becomes distraction. Purpose filters opportunity. It prevents overextension. Capacity is not about doing more. It is about handling what aligns with calling effectively. Support systems matter. As responsibility increases, isolation becomes dangerous. Wise counsel provides balance. Encouragement strengthens resilience. Accountability maintains integrity. Capacity expands within community. Sometimes capacity increases before visible reward appears. You may carry greater responsibility without immediate recognition. This phase tests motive. Are you committed to growth or applause? Developing quietly strengthens authenticity. When recognition comes, it will not distort identity. Energy management is crucial. Burnout limits expansion. Rest replenishes clarity. Health sustains productivity. Capacity includes knowing when to pause to preserve strength. Sustainable growth requires rhythm. As you expand, old limitations lose relevance. Tasks that once overwhelmed you become manageable. Decisions that once intimidated you become routine. Confidence strengthens through experience. Each challenge mastered increases readiness for the next. Capacity expansion positions you for durable elevation. When opportunity arrives, you will not scramble to adjust. You will recognize that stretching prepared you. Pressure refined you. Discipline structured you. Development strengthened you. What once felt heavy now feels appropriate because you have grown into it. There are moments when favor, resources, and opportunity converge in ways that defy ordinary explanation. Convergence is not coincidence, it is coordination. It is the intersection where preparation meets provision, where readiness encounters access, where vision aligns with supply. For a long time, elements may have felt scattered: ideas without funding, skill without platform, relationships without collaboration. But convergence gathers what was dispersed and synchronizes it into momentum. Favor often precedes visibility. It works quietly, positioning your name in conversations you did not initiate. It softens resistance in places you have not entered. Favor is not manipulation. It is alignment that creates receptivity. When favor rests on your efforts, doors respond differently. Conversations flow with less strain. Introductions happen naturally. The atmosphere shifts from opposition to openness. Resources are not limited to finances. They include knowledge, partnerships, influence, strategy, timing, and energy. Sometimes you possess more resources than you realize, but they remain inactive until opportunity activates them. Convergence brings recognition. You begin to see how your experiences, skills, and connections form a network of supply. What once felt insufficient becomes strategic. Opportunity is often disguised as responsibility. It may not arrive with immediate comfort. It can appear as a challenge that stretches capacity. Yet within that challenge lies access. Convergence aligns you with moments that require courage. Hesitation can delay activation. Discernment helps you recognize when opportunity is knocking. There are seasons when resources feel limited and favor seems hidden. These periods develop gratitude and stewardship. When convergence occurs, the sudden availability of support can overwhelm those who are unprepared. Discipline learned in scarcity preserves integrity in abundance. Gratitude sustains humility when access expands. Relationships play a significant role in convergence. Strategic alliances multiply impact. One connection can open doors that effort alone could not access. Collaboration accelerates progress. Convergence often introduces you to individuals whose strengths complement yours. Mutual vision creates synergy. Isolation limits scale. Timing amplifies convergence. The same opportunity offered prematurely may fail, but offered at the right moment, it flourishes. Timing ensures readiness meets access. When the moment is right, clarity accompanies it. You sense alignment rather than confusion. Movement feels ordered rather than chaotic. There is also internal convergence. Confidence aligns with competence. Belief synchronizes with preparation. When internal alignment meets external opportunity, hesitation diminishes. Doubt loses volume. You step forward with steadiness because you recognize readiness. Convergence can feel sudden after long periods of stillness. Invitations may arrive close together. Financial provision may appear from multiple channels. Support may emerge unexpectedly. This clustering is not random. It reflects coordinated movement. What was being prepared quietly begins to surface visibly. Stewardship becomes critical in convergence. When multiple opportunities arise, discernment determines direction. Not every open door is assignment. Some opportunities distract from purpose. Selectivity preserves focus. Convergence requires wisdom to manage increase without fragmentation. Energy shifts during convergence. Momentum builds. Resistance weakens. What once required excessive effort begins to flow. This does not eliminate responsibility, it enhances efficiency. Strategic focus multiplies results. When favor and preparation align, progress accelerates. There may be moments when you question whether convergence is sustainable. Fear of loss can arise after long seasons of lack. Guarding against self-sabotage is essential. Trust stabilizes expansion. Gratitude reinforces perspective. Confidence anchored in preparation prevents insecurity from disrupting momentum. Convergence also exposes readiness gaps. Increased opportunity reveals areas requiring refinement. Instead of resisting feedback, embrace it. Growth within convergence strengthens longevity. Openness to adjustment preserves alignment. Sometimes convergence requires relocation mentally, emotionally, or physically. You may need to shift environments to access aligned resources. Familiar settings may no longer support expanded vision. Movement can feel risky, but stagnation carries greater cost. Visibility often increases during convergence. Attention amplifies. Influence broadens. Integrity must remain steady. Character anchors expansion. Without grounding, increase can distort priorities. There is a rhythm to convergence. It gathers pace, intensifies, and stabilizes when managed wisely. Awareness helps you navigate it intentionally. Celebrate access without becoming complacent. Maintain discipline while embracing opportunity. What once felt fragmented now begins to form a cohesive pattern. Skills developed in obscurity connect with platforms prepared in advance. Relationships cultivated casually reveal strategic significance. Ideas stored for years find context for expression. Convergence confirms that preparation was not wasted. It validates patience exercised in hidden seasons. It reveals that alignment has been progressing beyond visible evidence. Favor resources and opportunity do not collide randomly. They coordinate with precision. When they meet at the same intersection, movement becomes undeniable. Before manifestation becomes visible in your circumstances, it must become stable in your mind. Mental realignment is the bridge between promise and experience. If your internal dialogue contradicts what you are believing for, you create tension that delays progress. Thoughts shape perception. Perception influences action. Action determines outcome. Realigning your mind repositions your entire trajectory. Many limitations are inherited through repeated narratives. Words spoken over you in childhood, experiences that shaped your confidence, environments that normalized mediocrity. These influences embed themselves in subconscious expectation. Without intentional examination, they continue directing decisions long after their relevance has expired. Mental realignment begins with awareness. You identify the thoughts that no longer serve your growth. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It presents worst-case scenarios as protection. It magnifies risk while minimizing potential. Realignment challenges distorted reasoning. It asks whether the hesitation you feel is wisdom or insecurity. When you confront fear with clarity, its authority weakens. Confidence strengthens, not because uncertainty disappears, but because belief outweighs doubt. Language reflects alignment. The words you repeat internally become the script your life follows. If your vocabulary centers on lack, struggle, and impossibility, your actions will mirror those themes. Reframing language shifts expectation. Instead of saying you always fall short, you acknowledge growth in progress. Instead of anticipating rejection, you prepare for opportunity. Language is not denial of reality. It is declaration of direction. Mental realignment requires discipline. Thoughts are persistent. Negative patterns resurface automatically. Consistency in replacing limiting beliefs with constructive ones builds new mental pathways. Over time, what once required effort becomes natural. Repetition reinforces transformation. Daily reflection strengthens focus. Comparison distorts alignment. When you measure your progress against someone else's timeline, frustration intensifies. Mental clarity recognizes individuality of path. Your journey unfolds according to preparation and purpose. Releasing comparison restores concentration. Energy once spent on envy becomes available for development. Visualization strengthens manifestation. Seeing yourself operate effectively in expanded spaces conditions your mind for possibility. Visualization is rehearsal for reality. It reduces intimidation. It builds familiarity with growth. When opportunity arises, your mind does not resist it because it has already imagined success. There is also the need to confront self-sabotage. Sometimes progress stalls not because opportunity is absent, but because identity has not caught up with capacity. If you subconsciously believe you do not deserve advancement, you will unconsciously undermine it. Realignment confronts this disconnect. It integrates worthiness with preparation. It affirms that growth is not accidental, but earned through development. Mental resilience is cultivated through perspective. Setbacks are interpreted as feedback rather than failure. Criticism becomes instruction rather than condemnation. Perspective protects momentum. When challenges arise, your response determines duration. A realigned mind adapts quickly. It seeks lesson over blame. Information intake influences alignment. What you consume shapes thought patterns. Constant exposure to negativity reinforces limitation. Strategic exposure to insight, encouragement, and wisdom elevates thinking. Guarding mental environment is essential. Not every voice deserves access to your focus. Focus directs manifestation. Scattered thinking produces scattered results. When your attention is divided by distraction, progress fragments. Realignment sharpens priority. It eliminates unnecessary mental clutter. It trains